now we can move a bit more into the topic of the reform of the CAP. So the CAP has evolved a lot since its creation in the 60s. However, this policy is still very much criticized, and internally as well as outside the EU, as we just saw, and in particular by the developing countries. Indeed, the CAP, by its support to European farmers and its subsidies for crops and land, its import tariff and quotas on certain goods from outside the EU, the CAP is often accused of damaging the world competition. So what do you think about that accusation, and what is, according to you, the legitimacy of the CAP outside the EU? Can we speak of unfair competition?
Yes, I think so. Of course, when we export milk powder to African countries that really do not need it, but you have dairies there who buy it because it's so cheap, and then their own farmers go bankrupt, you can say that it's unfair competition. But also the system is driven by overproduction to keep a low milk price in Europe also. And that's also a difficulty for the farmers here. If you are not competitive, and with competitive, nothing else is meant than grow, or go. If that is competition, it's very unfair, because it does not look at all to what is said in the Treaty of Rome and the Treaty of Lisbon. In those treaties, from the first treaty on, it's very clear that also farmers need a good position in the whole chain and need a good price. And we do not want subsidies, but we want a fair price from the market, because the price is there. What consumers pay is enough to give milk producers a good milk price in Europe or wherever you go, because I have been now to several regions of the world, and what I see in the milk price and the cost price is that farmers, milk producers all over the world are always underpaid 30%. And those 30% are divided amongst industry and trade, because they have a very, like Joe said, a very untransparent system in which they can go on and just squeeze the milk producers, because the milk is coming every day. I cannot tell them, no, today I'm not going to deliver because the price is not good. It's even worse. I don't know for 6 weeks what my milk price is going to be. So they collect, and what's left over is for the farmers.
So here maybe we are standing in between the big debate about protectionism and free trade. And would you say that maybe you prefer like the liberalization of the market? Or what about the U.S. agricultural policy in that matter?
Well, I'm totally in favor of free and fair markets, but they will not be fair if they're not transparent. And the processor is sometimes a little more organized than the producer when it comes to writing legislation and policy. And the other thing, one of my big fears, in the U.S., I call us a junk food nation, a fast food nation. And we seem to have, in the interest of profits, we are importing powders and things that we can add to the cheese vat and add to the dairy ice cream and everything, even yogurt. Everything has byproducts in it now, and I think we're lessening our quality along with, which is going to just drive away the customers. And so we've got to take care of our customers, and we have to respect their tastes. And you know, in the interest of processor profits, I think we're sacrificing our quality, which is going to, in the end, it's going to cost us all money. So yeah, fair marketing, free markets are fine if they're transparent and fair. And right now, we're a long ways from that.
So right now, what you're saying, all of you, is that it's not fair, it's not transparent, and so the farmers are underpaid. So what do you think that the WTO can do for that? Because we know that the World Trade Organization has been encouraging the different reforms of the CAP by removing the barriers and taking away the subsidies. But then the last development round was blocked because the developed countries didn't want to let their subsidies disappear. So what is your feeling about the role of that organization? Is that doing any good to your different sectors, you think?
I can respond to that to say WTO in real sense is actually neoliberalization to us in Africa. Since we signed into the free trade liberalization under the WTO, we have been pressed to open up our markets for everything, for various things. But the most interesting thing is that we are not trading at the same level. We do not have products that we can trade to Europe freely through WTO, just the way the European countries can trade with us. So it's actually WTO is something very difficult and quite worse even than the CAP.
Well, I think that in WTO, especially trade and trade organizations and multinationals have such enormous influence that sustainability is not part of WTO. And if you want sustainable farming in this world, because that's the only way to continue to have enough food from our soil, you have to go somewhere else than just competition. And I think that everybody that goes to WTO just wants to make a lot of money. Not for the people, but for a few people. That's also what happened with the whole economic crisis.
For a few people, you mean the industries, the big
multinational? The managers. The whole economic crisis is also a result from a few people, a small percentage of top managers who want to become very, very rich. And also, we know that a few firms, a few multinationals are doing very well in this system, and they have an enormous power in the whole system. And what people want is not acknowledged in WTO, because you have the inquiries that the European Commission does under the European citizens. And what do European citizens want? They want sustainable food, they want fair food, and they want that subsidies, when they are given, that they are given to the farmers who need them. And what is happening? Not at all. Nothing of this is happening. So people also have to become more active, not only farmers, but the only way to change politicians is to make very clear that they will not get a vote when they don't change their policy.
So talking about that, maybe we can talk more about the reform process and the reason you're here today in the Parliament to talk to maybe the rapporteurs or the member of Parliament you met about the current reform. So as we said, the CAP has been constantly reformed in the last decades, and whereas it was much more based before on intervention prices on the market, and support to farmers so they produce more, which led to this big mountain of food that we all are aware of. Now it's a bit different. It's the EU has started the decoupling of income support from production. So that's to say now the direct aid to farmers is independent from the amount produced. And is the reforming process going in the right direction according to you, or what needs to be done? Like, what are you saying to the people you meeting today or tomorrow in the Parliament? What are your revendication?
Well, for once, the whole decoupling was really a plan from very rich countries, because we were not allowed to dump anymore. And this gave us the opportunity to continue to dump our milk powder and our overproduction in regions outside of Europe. And that was really the reason why the decoupling was there, because it was not good for the farmers. It was only good for trade and industry. So again, the policymakers have chosen to listen only to the people with the power. And I can understand that, because, well, if you are a politician and you need another job after your political career, then maybe you can go into a board and make 100 or 200,000 euros per year in that position. We as farmers do not have that to give. So mostly we are not listened very closely to, but now you see the European people change and they want another agricultural policy. But they also have to be very careful that farmers around the world cannot farm if there is not a system that recognizes their cost of production and that they need at least to have a price that covers this costs, or else you will not have a sustainable system, and in a few years' time you will not have young farmers anymore.
And do you think that the fact that the European Parliament is for the first time involved in the negotiation is changing something for you, or not at all?
Yes, partly because sometimes I think they understand very well what the problems are. But then again, when it comes up to the vote, I very often see that people change views in the vote. And then afterwards say again, yes, I was against it, but I did vote for it because my party, blah, blah, blah. And then I think you have to have a backbone. If you know it's bad for the future of Europe, that's why you are in the parliament. That's the only reason why you are in the parliament. If you cannot really do something for Europe or for the rest of the world, please get out.
Yeah, there is no point.
Yeah.
I see your point. What about you, Joe? Then, what is your speech then to the people you're meeting today in your parliament? What are you promoting?
I think any country to really be secure has to have food security, and I think one of the strongest methods of having food security is have a strong, diverse food supply. And you mentioned the mountain of food. In the U.S., we have a strategic oil supply, but we don't have a strategic food supply. I mean, everything is delivered day to day, and there's no reserve. And there's nothing wrong with a little food reserve. But my biggest fear is that we're losing our base of producers and our human capital that it takes to produce this wonderful food that provides protein. If we're going to feed the world in the future, we can't lose our producers who are going to be there that should be there to feed those people. And if you lose your diversity by concentrating all of your cattle under the same system, under the same management, under the same part of the country or other countries, you lose your diversity. You are now vulnerable to lost production in the future. And so you must maintain that diverse and strong dairy sector or agricultural sector anywhere in the world, not just in the EU or the U.S.
And maybe we can finish by you, Hélène. What are you saying to the people you meet today? What is the priority?
The priority that I put up is fair trade. What we really require is whereby we have a trade that can be fair. What we can produce from the south, we can bring it up here. What you produce, you can bring it down to our place, but in a fair trade system. Like, for example, the fair trade campaigns and trades that have been going on, unlike what is in the policy, the agricultural policy or the WTO.
So what you say is really interesting. So we see that we have a lot of issues here, ensuring good prices for farmers, ensuring food safety, ensuring the quality, facing also maybe the environmental challenges, preservation of the environment, but also the human capital and ensuring a more fair trade. And so maybe then I will ask you,